UFC 249 is over. The biggest news of UFC 249 is George St. Pierre is going into the UFC Hall of Fame. There's going to be an official ceremony to take place later this year. I've never physically sparred or amateur wrestled with him, but at one point during my last year that I did a little comeback into amateur wrestling, when I got the alternate position for the London Games back in 2012, I believe it was. I got the alternate position for Greco-Roman wrestling. I would often train at the Montreal Wrestling Club, and he was training at that same club for UFC. So I would see him when I would occasionally train there. Really nice guy, great fighter. It's too bad he's retired. Obviously, he has more in the tank, but UFC didn't want him to just fight a one-fight deal, from what I understand. They wanted him to fight multi-fights, so that's the reason why he retired. He didn't want to sign a multi-fight deal. But I still think he'll be back. He's not over the hill yet, and he still has the desire to fight, because even since he announced his retirement, he's talked about it. So I don't think we've seen the last of GSP in the cage, but congratulations to him on being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. In UFC results, I'll tell you the main results. Justin Gaethje, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, beat Tony Ferguson. And the other main results, the fight I was most interested in was the Francis Ngannou heavyweight fight, which he won in about 20 seconds. I saw that fight on Twitter. He actually got about 4 to 5 punches in after he knocked out Jarzinho or Jarcino. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he lost in about 20 seconds. Ngannou should probably fight for the heavyweight title soon, but I think, from what I understand, they want Stipe Miocic to fight Daniel Cormier, because that's the big money fight. Stipe says he wants time to have a proper training camp. However, Dana White is pressuring him. It looks like the Cormier fight might happen before the end of the year, so in all likelihood, Ngannou will have other fights before he gets a title shot. From what I understand, and I'm bad at pronouncing these names, but Henry Cejudo beat Dominic Cruz by a controversial TKO. I know that Cruz thought he should have been given more of a chance there, but it was a TKO at 4:58 into round 2. And Henry won, and he retired. He was the bantamweight champion, so he retired as champion. And Calvin Kattar defeated Jeremy Stevens with a knockout in round 2. And that fight is interesting because Jeremy Stevens failed to make weight. I believe he was 4 or 5 pounds overweight, and that didn't help him. He lost. And another interesting thing about UFC 249 is Dave Meltzer had reported that other MMA news sites had said that Joe Rogan would not be doing in-ring octagon interviews. However, he was doing in-ring octagon interviews. So obviously UFC changed their mind, or Joe Rogan changed his mind, and the in-ring post-fight interviews happened. Face-offs also happened. A lot of the fighters were wearing masks during those face-offs from the pictures that I saw. Now, I didn't see the face-offs for every single fight, but I did see them for some of them. And, of course, Justin Gaethje beat Tony Ferguson, as I already mentioned. And in wrestling news, there's a whole controversy now because Roman Reigns, you guys probably all remember this, he showed up at the WrestleMania tapings for WrestleMania 36, but something happened and he left. So he didn't have his WrestleMania 36 match. He then WWE, apparently there was negotiations behind the scenes where WWE was still trying to convince Reigns to have that match despite even already taping the replacement match, which was Braun Strowman against Goldberg. Obviously, Roman Reigns is a way bigger star than Braun Strowman. Also, Roman Reigns makes $5 million a year, according to Forbes. Strowman only makes $1.9 million, so they probably would have rather the guy they're paying $5 million have taken the title. But something happened. He didn't have the match, and if all you guys remember, he put out a cell phone video saying he backed out of the match due to health concerns and he wanted to keep his family safe and so forth. But in recent days, he's come out and said he's changed his story a bit. He said the real reason he's been off is because he just had twins and he wanted to be home with his family. That does not explain why he didn't have the WrestleMania 36 match, unless Goldberg really didn't want to wrestle more. They wouldn't pay Goldberg the huge sum of money that he demands per event, and they just wanted to get the title off of him. And Reigns wanting to be home with the kids, maybe they didn't want to give the title to Reigns. Who knows? But the interesting thing is that there's some controversy over is he's now changed his story, saying he wanted to be home with his kids rather than he was doing this for health reasons. Maybe it's to help take some of the heat off WWE. Who knows? Smackdown is down about 25% in viewership since they started on Fox. Raw is way down. It's funny. I saw somebody comment today on a video that I did last year, literally just about a year ago, where Vince Russo was talking about WWE Raw getting 1.5 ratings and saying Vince probably isn't happy with it. And now a year later, they're getting 0.5, which is crazy, which, by the way, SmackDown on Fox last night got a 0.5 rating. Vince McMahon probably feels that these rating drops are concerning. And Dave Meltzer says that he doesn't expect Vince to just sit aside and let the ratings crater. So Meltzer believes Vince is going to try and pull something to avoid this, with various WWE executives selling stock and Stephanie and Triple H recently selling 14% of the stock. Maybe they needed their money for something else, but that definitely makes it look like they don't have much faith in the product. It is noteworthy that they waited until after the WWE's quarterly earnings report to sell their stock. They didn't do it before the earnings report. Jesse Ventura has announced officially today that he has decided not to run for president under the Green Party at the upcoming presidential elections. By the way, Daniel Puder. I interviewed Daniel Puder. That full interview is on patreon.com/thehannibal.tv now, along with the interview I did today with Jason Sensation, the Brian Blair extended interview I did, the Mark Mero extended interview. I put those on Patreon first, ad-free, out of respect for the people that pay $1.99 or more a month to help support this channel. I really appreciate you guys. And finally, in the news today, Scott Coker, the owner of Bellator, who Daniel Puder does not like, by the way, says he expects Bellator to join in mid-July. But anyways, I just realized I got off track. I was going to bring up that Daniel Puder told me that Dan Rodheimer, who I actually wrestled once in Deep South Wrestling, he was one of Puder's Tough Enough group that Puder remains in contact with. He is actually running for Senate in the U.S., so good luck to him. I actually did have some communication with him the other day. He said he will do an interview with me after the primaries. If anyone doesn't remember who Dan Rodheimer is, he was the tall, blonde-haired guy. From what I recall, he was a great athlete. I liked the match that I had with him. But from what I recall, his body and look and the gimmick they were trying to give him was very similar to Randy Orton. And apparently there may have been some behind the scenes heat there that maybe Randy Orton wasn't too happy that this developmental guy that looked very similar to him and had a similar gimmick to him was coming up.